Welcome back to the C-Files. This is a show on my channel where I talk about weird or interesting things that I find online. And in previous episodes, I've went over all sorts of mediums on the internet. I've talked about the live-action web series of Stupid Mario Brothers, and I've also talked about the indie game Baldi's Basics and its effect that YouTubers like Markiplier have on their audience. I've also talked about this weird animated web shorts about Caillou being a Pokemon trainer. But there's one thing that I said I wouldn't cover. Until now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, and dudes of all teenagers, as well as the gals. My name is Weston Chandler. I am here, and y'all are there.
Now, you may be asking why I'm going over such an old series that's been covered a whole bunch of times, and I have my reason. Sonichu has two elements to it. Weston Chandler and Sonichu, the comic. I believe that you can't fully understand the comic without looking at the events that happened behind the scenes while Chris was making the comic. But I do think that you can look at Chris's life and see those events without having to delve too far into Sonichu. I've seen people read the comic and not understand the comic at all because they haven't looked at the events behind it. For my videos on Sonichu, I'm really only going to be covering the story of Sonichu and looking at the real-life events that happen behind the scenes as they're presented in the comic in chronological order. Since Chris uses these comics as his own presented version of reality, events in real life play out differently than they do in the comics, which is really the purpose of these videos. It's a compare and contrast of Chris's fantasy versus what actually happened to Chris in real life. So with that out of the way, let's look at Sonichu issue 0. Sonichu issue 0 features the infamous cover of Weston Chandler and his creation Sonichu. Chris exclaims, "Go, Sonichu! Go out and zap to the extreme!" With Sonichu replying, "I will! Thank you, father." This is kind of strange, because Sonichu really wouldn't be considered Chris's kid. He would be more of a creation, like an actual character would be. But as the comics progress, Sonichu, and technically more of the other characters that are in the comic, will refer to Chris as their parent. The cover also proclaims that this is a premiere hand-drawn issue, which will be the art style of the comics that Sonichu will be in for its entire run. The story begins 5 miles from the city of Station Square, a prominent location from the Sonic Adventure game on Sega Dreamcast. A lone Pikachu, the mascot from the Pokemon franchise, is seen looking at what Christian calls the perfect chaos monster, which is actually the antagonist from Sonic Adventure. Christian appears in the corner of the page to say, "I am Weston Chandler, creator and author of this comic. This is his story, and nothing less." This will be proven to be extremely wrong as the comic continues. Sonic the Hedgehog is seen going into his supersonic mode. He attacks the perfect chaos monster, but is then knocked into the Pikachu, who has arrived to the battleground to see what is happening. The power of Supersonic colliding into Pikachu causes Pikachu to transform into Sonichu, and a rainbow to shoot out of the two characters. The rainbow flies 15 miles away, where a girl Raichu is struck by it, causing a physical transformation much like our hero. The girl Raichu's Pokemon trainer, Kel, arrives on the scene and exclaims that her newly changed Pokemon has become as beautiful as a rose. This gives the evolved Pokemon the idea to name themselves Rosechu, which the name is drawn on a Zapbud, the fictional flower that Chris invented, although the name is really difficult to see. Rosechu's name is actually a mix between Amy Rose from the Sonic franchise and Raichu from the Pokemon franchise. This can be shown in the visual design of Rosechu as well, with her appearance being almost completely the same as Amy Rose, the only differences being that Rosechu's clothes are different and she has a long and slender tail. Our titular hero Sonichu then wakes up and helps Sonic defeat the perfect chaos monster. After the battle, Sonichu hears the people of Station Square cheer for Sonic. Using this knowledge, Sonichu chooses his name, mixing together Sonic and Pikachu. Chris then reappears in the same fashion that he did at the beginning of the comic and says, And from then on, Sonichu went on to make new friends as well as enemies, and he will use his abilities to stop evil and save the world. Stay tuned for more zappin' adventures of Sonichu. This ending card brings to light that Chris's style of writing is more in the form of TV shows that he watches, specifically Saturday morning cartoons. Although as time will go on, Chris will start taking more inspirations from adult animated cartoons like Family Guy and South Park. However, the end of this episode doesn't actually end issue 0. What follows after the end of Sonichu's origin is an info dump about the world of Sonichu. Christian explains that Sonichu takes place in the fictional town of Quickville, in which he is the mayor. The name Quickville is just Chris's initials, Christian Weston Chandler, and Ville at the end of it. The town of Quickville will actually become more important as time goes on throughout the series. We also get a small character bio for Sonichu, which gives us his age, and it turns out that Sonichu is 16. His hobbies include running, surfing, chillin', and mostly outdoor activities. Ironically, these are things that Chris actually doesn't do in real life. Other facts related to Sonichu includes that he enjoys the scenery around him. His favorite colors are yellow and blue, which just so happen to be his own colors, and that he also loves Rosachu. The theme of becoming romantically involved with someone is something that Chris will obsess over within his comics and in real life. We then move on to the next page, which introduces Rosachu's character bio. According to Chris, Rosachu is 15. Her hobbies include frolicking through the fields, shopping at Quickville Mall, and cooking. This is just an omen for more of Chris's views to come to light as the comic series continues. Also in this issue, we are introduced to other characters, but instead of introducing these extra characters through the small descriptions that are used in the comic, I'm going to be introducing them by their first official appearance within the comic, so you probably won't see them this episode. However, I will draw attention to Chris's description of himself on the final page before we move on to the next chapter of issue 0. Chris's character bio is a full-page spread, which includes his basics. According to Chris, he's 5'10", his birthday is on February 24th, 1982. He also talks about his efforts in getting a CAD degree, and the fact that he's lonely and single. He describes himself as a creative person who enjoys playing video games, such as Sonic, Pokemon, and Animal Crossing. He also likes to build with Lego pieces, as well as play with his Transformers. He also plays the Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon trading card games. This description of himself is treated like a personals ad, possibly in the hopes for a boyfriend-free girl, as Chris calls them, to read his comics and come find him with the interest in dating him. At the bottom of the page, Chris's tripod site is advertised. This site is his first Sonichu-themed site where he used to upload his comics, but because of Christian's infamy and possibly his poor choice of passwords, his account was hacked and he never got it back. The next episode is called Genesis of the Lovehogs, showing more that Christian sees the comics as more of a TV show rather than an actual comic series. This title is also a reference to the Sega Genesis, the original console of Sonic the Hedgehog. The chapter begins with Sonichu walking through the woods, looking for something to eat. His body, since becoming Sonichu, has made him unable to stay satisfied on his original diet. He then spots Rosachu. Sonichu immediately finds her attractive, and he follows her to a cabin where he knocks on the door. Rosachu opens and sees Sonichu. She, too, immediately falls infatuated with Sonichu and whisks him inside. Sonichu and Rosachu exchange names. Rosachu introduces herself with the terrible pickup line, "My name's Rosachu, and you can call me anytime." Sonichu guesses her nickname perfectly. Rosachu then yells to Kel, her Pokemon trainer, that Sonichu will be staying over, and Chris tries to draw an animation smear, but since he's making a comic, the face just looks like she grew a second one on the back of her head. Kel enters the room and sees Sonichu. Her mind jumps to the notion that they're dating, further showing that when Christian sees a guy with another girl, he automatically jumps to the conclusion that they're dating, further enabling his noviophobia, his explanation for the reason that he's unable to get a girlfriend. Derived from the Spanish word novio, meaning boyfriend, and the English phrase phobia, meaning irrational fear of. He used these phrases as a crutch for getting rejected, with the reason being that girls would claim to already be in a relationship. This also stemmed into the infinitely high boyfriend factor, which is the explanation that the reason he kept getting the same rejection response was because every possible girl in the world was already in a committed relationship. This is also where the phrase boyfriend-free girl comes from, meaning a girl that doesn't already have a boyfriend. Rather than trying to better himself, though, Chris would use these terms again as a crutch, and this would be shown within Sonichu. We skip a few days later, where Sonichu and Rosichu confess their undying love for one another, despite knowing each other only for a couple of days. The second episode of Sonichu ends on a full-page spread of Sonichu and Rosichu kissing under the fireworks. With Sonichu and Rosichu being only 15 and 16, they sure do talk like they're much older. Regardless, with this blossoming team romance, we can really only expect more tasteful and exciting adventures to come. Moving on to the next page, we're greeted with an advertisement for Sonichu Advance and Pokemon Lightning version. This showcases Chris's desire to make Sonichu into a franchise. Unfortunately, Sonichu is a mix between two very copyrighted intellectual properties, and is considered to be completely unmonetizable. Chris, however, doesn't understand this at all, and further on in the series will continue and try to market this non-existent Sonichu merchandise, despite the Sonichu comics not getting mainstream attention until years after this issue's release. Our next episode is titled Sonichu vs. Natesirk. The title page is a little less flattering, with the world being crudely drawn, featuring two storefronts with their signs capitalized in Arial MT font. This is the default font for MS Paint and is really only one of the two fonts Chris uses in his comics, aside from Comic Sans, which is used for the text bubbles. The comic begins surprisingly in media res, which will be one of the most advanced writing techniques that Christian will use, and it will be seemingly the only time that he'll use it. Sonichu is fighting Natesirk, who is the son of Team Rocket's Giovanni from Pokemon. Natesirk is also just Christian spelled backwards. Being that Natesirk could be considered to be an anti-Christian, Natesirk looks drastically different from Christian's appearance. He is slender, wearing a green jacket with a purple shirt with the Team Rocket R logo on it, and Natesirk also has long hair that stands on end, with his goggles making his hair look like a red bundle of wheat. Sonichu explains the situation. Earlier, when Kel had to run some errands at the Quickville Mall and allowed Rosie to borrow her credit card, Kel entrusted me to make sure Rosie didn't spend over $100. At first it was easy due to her willpower, but then with all the sales and coupons... This sentence kind of shows Chris's lack of understanding with women, being the fact that really, whenever he talks about them, he only uses stereotypes that exist. The comic also establishes Sonichu's hate for pickles. For some reason, Chris also hated pickles as well. While he did dislike the food, the real reason was that pickles reminded him of the male genitalia, which he would call by the name of the vegetable. Wait, vegetable? Is it a vegetable? I'm not sure. Anyways, just while they're eating, a Zapdos breaks into the mall and whisks away Rosichu, and we're now brought up to the beginning of the episode. The next page consists of multiple attacks used on Zapdos from Sonichu. The issue with this page is that the action is better suited for TV shows that Chris watched on Sunday mornings, yet he tries to translate them into a comic form which really doesn't work at all. After that, the page consists of a final blow countdown, where oddly enough, the final seconds, rather than being strung out like in films and TV shows that Chris grew up on, instead are squished together at the end, objectively speeding up the entire scene, rushing the climax. Right after saving Rosichu, he joins the rest of the Sonichus, despite the fact that one of the attacks he uses doesn't actually clone himself. But the fact that he even joins them to finish Zapdos off ruins the purpose of the final blow countdown to begin with. Natesirk returns the Pokemon to its Pokeball, despite being on Zapdos at the beginning of the comic. He then taunts Sonichu by saying, "Enjoy your victory, Hedgehog, but we will meet again, and when we do, I will capture you for my father, and Team Rocket. Let's go, Raikou!" Natesirk leaves on his Pokemon Raikou. Also, throughout the rest of the comic, Natesirk really doesn't attempt to capture Sonichu at all, except for later in this episode, but that's really the only time that it ever happens, despite Natesirk being a seasoned villain throughout the entirety of Sonichu. Sonichu turns around. Chris attempts the animation smear on paper again, despite not learning the first time that animation techniques don't work on paper. We see a crowd of people cheering Sonichu, all of them being white faceless blobs despite 3 people, Rosichu, Kel, and Christian himself. As you can see, Christian draws himself a little more approachable than what he actually looked like at the time. Rosichu congratulates Sonichu, saying that he's her hero. Kel says that she's astounded by his work during the battle. Chris then gets his own panel, per usual, and congratulates Sonichu as the mayor of Quickville. We then get treated to the epilogue. Christian and Sonichu exit the mall. Christian breaks the 4th wall by saying, "Well, Sonichu, I feel this comic is my best work yet." Sonichu replies, "I think so too, father," which again is just odd, because Christian is the creator of Sonichu. he's not Sonichu's dad. But again, this isn't the last time that Sonichu is going to call him dad. We then get to the next panel where Sonichu says, "But wow, all this fantastic creativity and you're still girlfriend free!" Christian replies, "It bothers me too, but I never give up. I'll find a boyfriend-free girl around my age yet." Chris will then drive off in the car with the license plate Sonichu, which is actually the license plate of his car in real life. The real Sonichu looks on and thinks to himself, "There he goes, with a grin on his face. In the end, he'll say, 'One girlfriend, please,' because he'll probably fail again. I'm proud to have such a brave father." This shows that Christian has some form of self-awareness at the time since he wrote this. Although Chris doesn't have that self-awareness in real life, as we'll see in the sub-episode after this. But before the sub-episodes, we're treated to the classic Sonichu strips. According to Chris, these strips were drawn before the comic came out, and they're pretty insignificant as they don't really add anything to the overarching plot of the big Sonichu comics. But the strips consist of Sonichu, 25 years later, where it shows Sonichu chopping wood in a metal form. A second Sonichu strip where a black Sonichu is spying on Sonichu and Rosechu. Also, Rosechu's face is split into two again. And one of the more important strips called The Mastermind. This strip introduces the antagonist of Mary Lee Walsh. Here's the thing. Outside of the comic, she was the Dean of Student Affairs at Piedmont Virginia Community College, where Chris took 5 years to get his CAD degree when it would have normally taken 2. Chris's problem with Mary Lee Walsh was that during Chris's time at PVCC, while he was attempting to get his CAD degree, he would employ what is known as the attraction sign, a sign that advertised himself as a possible companion to anyone who would bother to talk to him. He would also publish what is known as the Sonichu News Dash, a newsletter talking about himself and Sonichu, as well as working as a personal ad for himself. Mary Lee Walsh, being the Dean of Student Affairs at the school, had these taken down. Chris, however, didn't listen, and kept putting out the news dash and using the attraction sign. This escalated until Mary tore down the sign and, in Chris's words, said that this sign would not get him a girlfriend, and that he would never get one. The validity of this statement is mostly false, as this would be highly unprofessional for Mary and would have cost her her job. Mary would eventually attempt to have a meeting with Chris, but what exactly happened is not known. What is known is that Chris spoke directly with Sonichu and relayed what he said to Mary. Chris also performed his Kamehameha on her, a reference to the Kamehameha from Dragon Ball Z. Chris's version of the Kamehameha was a wave that did no physical damage, but cursed the individual with extreme bad luck and misfortune. Unless Chris were to perform a special forgiveness and cleansing ritual, he believed that his Kamehameha actually worked. But since magic isn't real, Chris's attack probably didn't do anything. But then again, it's interesting to wonder if the curse that Mary received from Chris was to be a major staple within his life as he was documented online. The comic features Chris fighting Mary Lee Walsh and vaporizing her with the Kamehameha attack, showing that it can also work as the original Kamehameha attack. The next two classic Sonichu strips before the first sub-episode feature a blue Sonichu, but instead of spoiling who these new Sonichu characters are for now, I'd like to bring them up in the sub-episode, so I'm going to skip these. Before we reach the sub-episode, we get an advertisement for Sonichu Adventure for Nintendo GameCube, furthering Chris's desire to have his character as a franchise. We then finally get to sub-episode 1, Weston Chandler and Jerkop Tasterpie. Sub-episodes are dramatized versions of real-life events that happen in Chris's life. These events usually consist of Christian about to be kicked out of a place before defeating the Jerkops with his non-existent superpowers. The comic starts with Chris listening to his Nintendo DS, thinking about how he's not able to get himself a boyfriend-free girl, due to his noviophobia and the infinitely high boyfriend factor. He blames these for his circumstances, despite not doing anything to make himself more appealing to others. Christian laments, "This love quest makes me suffer some frustration as the other things that add to that are my loneliness. So many failures and all those men, other than myself, because they have taken all the pretty girls, leaving me with none to choose from. And those evil jerkops won't leave me alone either. I'm just a lonely, frustrated virgin looking for some true love." For those wondering what jerkops are the nickname given to the mall cops and security guards that usually ask Christian to leave places because he was loitering or trying to use the attraction sign, after being suspended from PVCC for the same exact reason. The comic has the jerk-off calling Chris a lowly liar and a solicitor. While some of these complaints are considered to be true, Chris in the comic would face this jerk-off in a heroic manner. The main jerk-off would then call more jerk-offs who would show up and cuff Christian. After fighting these jerk-offs off, Christian would change into Chris Chan's Sonichu, a blue version of Sonichu, which was shown in the classic Sonichu strips. Ironically enough, Chris Chan's Sonichu ends up looking more like Sonic than he does Sonichu. For those who are wondering what Chris Chan's Sonichu is, Chris Chan's Sonichu is Chris's alter ego, and as he calls it in a video of himself dressed like it,
my super mode. If I actually had the superpowers.
This doesn't really become the forefront of Sonichu's story until issue 2 of Sonichu, which will be in the next episode. After Chris's transformation, he exclaims, "Here we go! Let's rock and roll with things that make you go, everybody dance now!" Which is a reference to the CNC Music Factory. The big jerk-off from the beginning of the comic puts on some metal armor, which there's a clock on it, and I think the joke implies that he's taking too much time to put it on. I'm not entirely sure. Chris Chan's Sonichu lays a flurry of blows into the metal armor, which destroys it. The jerk-off then attempts to shoot Christian with an actual fucking gun, but Christian uses a barrier move to deflect the bullet. Chris Chan's Sonichu says one of his signature lines, "Fuzzy wuzzies get you hugs, prickly wicklies get you slugs. You gave me a slug, so you get my secret ultimate attack!" He then unleashes his Kamehameha on the jerk-off. The jerk-off claims he doesn't feel anything until he slips on a banana peel, breaks his glasses, and receives this message from one of the jerk-offs. "Chief, your wife just called. She has divorced you and left you. She took all of your things and she took your children too. And she loathes you for your filthy smoking habit." The jerk-off lets out a big "No!" Chris retorts with these memorable lines. "This would not have happened if you had not challenged and threatened me, as well as not leaving me alone with my ever so frustrating love quest, calling me a lying solicit, picked on my methods of attracting a boyfriend-free 18 to my current age year-old girl whom I can love and trust, and most importantly, handcuffing me on 9/11/2004 for no good reason. I hope that you have learned to never mess with a frustrated virgin when he is on a quest for a girlfriend to share some true love and trust with." These long, preachy-sounding monologues from Christian are normal for Sonichu, and as we go along with Sonichu, the use of Christian explaining these things instead of drawing them will become more prevalent. The jerk-off says, "My soul hurts," with Christian replying, "So did mine, and my heart was previously shattered too." The thing about the sub-episodes is that, like I said at the beginning, they're dramatizing real events that happened to Chris. Although the event behind sub-episode 1 was not completely documented, what likely happened was that Christian was handcuffed and escorted out of the place because he was loitering. This ends sub-episode 1, and then in turn, Sonichu issue 0. Let's move on to Sonichu issue 1. The cover of Sonichu issue 1 showcases a black Sonichu in a tube, with Sonichu and Sonic standing in front of it. Sonic says, "Is that supposed to be your clone?" Sonichu replies, "Unfortunately, Sonic, yes." Sonic questions, "Chemical X?" Possibly a reference to the Powerpuff Girls, which is the chemical that created the characters. But Sonichu replies, "No, Cherry Cola." The beginning of issue 1 gives us a disclaimer page which claims that Sonichu is copyrighted by Weston Chandler. The funny thing is, Sonichu isn't copyrightable. The disclaimer page also states that any names or persona illustrated in any of the Sonichu comics, except that of Weston Chandler that may seem similar to anyone in real life, are purely coincidental or otherwise parodic. The problem with this is that they're not coincidental or parodic in any way, as Christian deliberately makes the comics about things that happen to him in real life, and the characters in the comic are just caricatures of the people that Chris interacts with. The beginning of episode 4 is titled Darkness, Speed, and Lightning, with an accidental dose of Cherry Cola. It begins with a wall of text from Giovanni, the leader of Team Rocket, telling his son Natesurk that he has teamed up with Dr. Ivo Robotnik from the Sonic franchise. The two have decided to capture and clone Sonichu for their own nefarious purposes. But during the cloning process of Sonichu, a scientist by the name of Bill, possibly a reference to the character from Pokemon by the same name, spills a can of cherry cola onto the Sonichu fur. Hair? DNA samples. Bill didn't think to get a new sample or wait for another uncontaminated one, so he just puts the soiled DNA into the machine. This in turn creates not a cherry cola powered Sonichu, but just a normal Sonichu that's black and red, looking like Shadow the Hedgehog, showing Chris's unwillingness to be original in the realm of character design. Natesurk sees Black Sonichu and wonders why he's discolored instead of yellow like the original Sonichu. When Black Sonichu is removed from the tube, the next picture appears to be of Black Sonichu in a room where he listens to a speaker that says, "You are a Sonichu. You obey only Giovanni and his son, Natesurk. You are dark, evil, and very powerful. When awakened, you will seek and fight your counterpart." Black Sonichu thinks to himself, Sonichu? Natesurk? Powerful? Counterpart? What information are these fools trying to brainwash into me? I'll do whatever I please, but I'll play along. The next page shows everyone's reaction to Black Sonichu, who is back in the tube for some reason. Natesurk makes another comment about Black Sonichu's color. Giovanni asks Robotnik's opinion, and Robotnik responds about how it reminds him of Shadow, which could have been a cheeky reference, but it's more likely that it isn't. The conversation between Giovanni, Bill the Scientist, and Robotnik are led by a line with an arrow to each different speech bubble. This is probably because the speech bubbles were premeditated and placed in odd places. Reading them was probably hard, even for Chris, so he drew lines from one to another to make it easier to read. This happens a lot throughout the comic, so anytime something like this will happen, I'll read them in the intended order. The page goes like this. "Well, Robotnik, here's the result of your skills and our genius. What is your opinion? He reminds me of a creature I released years ago, but I'm sure this Sonichu is much stronger." "I'm not sure, but he looks black to me." "Oh well, he'll still shock that electric hedgehog Pokemon." "Boss, I'm reading the brainwaves of the Pokemon. They're racing." "Let's release it." "Yes, drain the fluid and raise the tube." "Yes, sir." The tube raises and Natesurk makes the statement for the third time that Black Sonichu is in fact black. People who have read the comic have told Chris that they believe that the name and look of Black Sonichu is, well, racist. While the likely answer is that he's called Black Sonichu because he looks like a shadow-colored version of Sonichu, Chris would then go back and change Black Sonichu's name to Blake. But to preserve the comic, I'll be reading these as they're originally printed. Natesurk says, "My name's Natesurk. I'm your master. Chris, you are not making yourself look too good right now." Anyhow, Natesurk tells Black Sonichu not to cross Giovanni, and introduces him to Robotnik. The next page gives Black Sonichu some rocket boots, just like Shadow. We also get a shortened version of Black Sonichu's name, Blachu. Natesurk then guides Blachu to his mission, birth, and training. Basically, he gets a 3-hour lecture on the Chris Chan universe. Giovanni asks Blachu if he has any questions, and Blachu has two. "So if I was cloned from Sonichu's DNA, shouldn't that make him my father? Also, why am I black and not yellow?" Giovanni answers his questions. "Astounding questions, Blachu. With all due respect, I would not refer to Sonichu as your father, but more as your brother, but do not ever look up to him." That's such an odd thing to say. Sonichu wouldn't be Blachu's father, regardless of being a clone. Like Giovanni said, he would be more like Sonichu's brother, or more just good version of Black Sonichu. Anyways, and wait a minute, now that I'm thinking about it, wouldn't Black Sonichu be brown, since Cherry Cola is brown and not black and red? Whatever, I'm getting ahead of myself. Giovanni continues, "And as my scientist Bill reported, he spilled some Cherry Cola onto your DNA strands. The red and black chemicals overridden the brown and yellow pigment. Any other questions?" Unfortunately, I don't think this is how DNA works. Dr. Robotnik used Google and found Sonichu and Rosechu. He gives the papers to Giovanni. Giovanni requests Robotnik to make a machine to drain Sonichu of his power. The next page shows Black Sonichu's training. The tests that Blachu is put through include the speed test, where he runs so fast that the clothes fly off the Team Rocket grunt next to Nate Cirque, and then Nate Cirque is wearing those clothes. Blachu's strength test shows that he can destroy 20 tons of something. Although, is that until he gets tired, or is it within an allotted time? And what is he destroying anyways? Is it brick? Is it cinder block? Limestone? Normal stone? I don't know. The spin dash test shows that he can spin up to 200 rotations a minute, which is interesting because the average car redlines at 5,000 to 7,000 rotations a minute, making the average car engine 25 times faster than Black Sonichu. For target practice, Black Sonichu is 99.5% accurate. Bill, aside from somehow not being fired for spilling cherry pop onto DNA, gives Giovanni and Eggman the test results. Sonichu and Blachu's stats are relatively the same, aside from Blachu's strength being 1 unit higher, although he's missing 1 defense unit. Even so, Blachu's been given the rocket shoes, and without them he would be slower than Sonichu, objectively making him worse than Sonichu. No surprise there. Giovanni and Eggman really don't seem to notice, so they send him out on his mission. But wait, now that I'm thinking about it, how the hell did they get Sonichu's stats? Was somebody, watching Sonichu do his stuff when he was fighting Nate Cirque the first time? Also, why are the stats put out like a game? The final image is a full-page spread of Black Sonichu being called to fight the original Sonichu, with a to be continued closing this episode. Funny thing about this picture, though, is that this full-page spread is a trace of some Sonic promotional art. We then get the same ad for the Sonic Advance and Pokemon Lightning version. The next episode is called Informal Meeting. The first page is a map of Quickville. This map will change throughout the series. Aside from Kel's house being in the middle of the street, we also get the locations of Christian, Sonichu, Rosechu, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Professor Oak. We then go to Nate Cirque and Black Sonichu planning their attack. Their plan is to capture Rosechu and then trap Sonichu during his rescue attempt. We then go to Sonichu and Rosechu sitting in the Zapbud fields. Rosechu kisses Sonichu, injecting his face with the strongest drugs available, making him trip out instantaneously. Rosechu's phone rings with the song For You I Will by Monica, which was featured on the Space Jam soundtrack, which is probably how Chris heard the song originally. Rosechu answers the phone, becoming italicized to answer it. According to Rosechu, it's almost time for dinner. Sonichu says, "May I escort you to your chateau, m'lady?" Rosechu jumps into Sonichu's arms and shrinks, ready to go. We then enter Map Scope, which shows Sonic wanting a change of scenery. He decides to go down the same path Sonichu is running down. Blachu is hiding in the bushes, ready to strike. He then says, "Boy, I need a countdown." 5. Blachu hides in the bushes. 4. Sonic is running down the road. 3. Sonichu and Rosechu also go down the same road. 2. Blachu quits the countdown and jumps out, taking Rosechu and having Sonichu crash into Sonic. Rosechu realizes that she is now being carried by Black Sonichu and screams for Sonichu's help. Sonic and Sonichu yell at each other until recognizing one another from episode 1, which leads into this. Alright, I'm going to try to read this.
You're Sonic the Hedgehog, right? Yeah, what's your name? Sonichu. I was originally Pikachu until you ran into me and gave me your powers. That's all right. Yeah, I remember zooming into a poor animal. Didn't realize it was a Pokemon. I apologize. Apology accepted. I was also powered up by the 7 Chaos Emeralds. Their power must have caused your transformation. I see. It's funny we ran into each other like this. Yeah. I was on my way home with my sweetheart Rosechu. Where is she? Oh, man. She's gone missing? Wait, did you see those? Yes. Footprints. Ah! They're on fire. Rosie was kidnapped. Let's follow him. I'll help you, Sonichu. Thank you, Sonic.
Sonichu and Sonic team up on the final panel, and we also find out that the Sonichu site supports autism awareness. Christian is considered to be a high-functioning autistic, which is probably why this is on the page. The next page features an ad for Sonichu and Company trading cards. Christian actually made his own trading cards based on Sonichu, Rosechu, and all the other characters in his franchise, including himself. We then move on to the final episode of this issue, aside from the sub-episode. The title is Black Metal Combat. Rosechu, unable to escape because of the rubber-coated bars, which is actually kind of smart. threatens Blachu that normal Sonichu will come and stop him. Blachu doesn't say anything. Nate Cirque asks Robotnik what their plan is to capture Sonichu. Robotnik gives this huge wall of text that boils down to, Blachu will guide Sonichu to the red X where I will activate the machine and then trap him, draining his power. Robotnik says that Nate Cirque can do whatever he wants with Sonichu after that and he won't care. His reasoning? He sings it in a song and dance that sounds a little bit like this. Robotnik, Robotnik, I'm a mad genius. Robotnik, Robotnik, I create chaos with my machines. I'm the darkest evil and I mean, I have a monkey in my robot. Wait, the monkey is a robot. I turned that animal into a robot with a process that I call robotization. Christian makes an appearance to mock himself for this song, saying, "This is so lame! I idol Sonic! I hate Eggman! I'm sorry, but that has to be the stupidest thing I've drawn in my life!" Unfortunately for Chris, this statement is extremely false. On the next page, we get a map scope, which I didn't explain it, but it's some sort of mini-map. Like in a video game, I suppose. Apparently, Rosachu's being held in Giovanni's gym, and someone left Robotnik's car keys or metal or something outside. Sonichu sees this and already knows that there's a trap coming along, so Sonic stands outside while Sonichu enters the building. Rosachu from outside the comic strip calls out Sonichu, and Sonic, seeing the door open, comments on Rosachu's appearance.
Is that Rosachu? She looks like Amy. Boy, if those two met.
I'm unsure if that is Chris's way of justifying his design choice for Amy. Unfortunately, that still makes her illegal. Sonichu gets a heaping helping of exposition from Nate Cirque, which he says,
"Ah, Sonichu, how good it is to see you again. Allow me to introduce my father, Giovanni, and our associate, Dr. Robotnik."
Chris then draws the laughing faces of Giovanni and Robotnik. Nate Cirque continues with,
"I am pleased to say that we do have your girlfriend captive in our facilities."
Which is odd since he already saw her on the last page. I'm unsure if Chris forgot, but it really seems this way. Nate Cirque continues,
"But to my dismay, it was not I who kidnapped your girlfriend, but allow me to present the true culprit and your advisory, your evil twin and clone, Black Sonichu."
Blachu then appears a couple times bigger than Sonichu. Sonichu exclaims,
"My clone?"
Blachu retorts,
"Just call me Blachu."
Blachu leads Sonichu into the trap, where Rosachu is back in the same room. Rosachu calls out to Sonichu. Eggman says that he is about to sap the power from the machine, but unbeknownst to him, Sonic came to save the day. Robotnik exclaims in surprise at Sonic's arrival. Sonic says,
You were expecting maybe Bugs Bunny?"
"What? What is this supposed to mean?" I don't really have an explanation for this one. Robotnik turns into Rayman and says that he has a contingency plan in the form of Metal Sonichu, which wasn't alluded to at all in the comic prior. Sonic says that Robotnik is lacking in imagination, which is rich in irony, as all of this is Chris's idea. Sonic dodges Metal Sonichu's attacks and does an odd gesture, which I know I've seen before, but I can't really put my finger on it. Sonic uses Metal Sonichu to break Sonichu's containment. Sonichu has Sonic spin dash into him. They then combine their attacks, and Sonichu throws Sonic into Metal Sonichu. After throwing Sonic, he runs to go save Rosachu. Metal Sonichu uses Defense Curl, but the impact from Sonic crashing into him sends Metal Sonichu rolling into a mountain, which kind of turns into like a pseudo-ramp, and Sonichu rockets into space and lands on the moon. Sonichu breaks the bars of Rosachu's cell and saves her. Nate Cirque, Giovanni, and Robotnik are all shocked. Sonic says,
"Well, Eggman, it looks like you were licked again, and shocked too."
Sonichu replies,
"You should all have learned a lesson not to mess with true Poke-Love. Rosie, let's bolt."
This dialogue from Sonichu again fits into Chris's warped idea of love, but it's kind of ironic as Sonichu didn't really do anything during that fight, making it look like Chris wants others to do his bidding for him. Rosichu slaps some teeth out of Blachu for kidnapping him, and Metal Sonichu is confirmed to be on the moon. The epilogue for this episode is Amy running into Rosichu. They start talking in the same fashion that Sonichu and Sonic did, where Chris numbers the lines. Chris arrives halfway through the conversation and says, "Pardon me, but they're going to girl talk for a couple hours and I'd like to save time and money on my car insurance by switching over to Getco." I don't really have to say anything about this line. It's pretty self-explanatory that it's just a really bad joke. But then we move on to the final episode of this issue. But before that, we get a spread for Christian's art gallery, which is a photo of Christian and the Hedgehog boys, without Christian's picture in it like the final version. Now you may be asking, what the hell's Christian and the Hedgehog boys? Well, Christian and the Hedgehog boys is a band Christian created in which they cover popular songs with Christian's lyrics. Usually, music videos about these feature songs that Chris would loudly sing over, and the backing tracks are usually just the original song with the lyrics still intact. Songs by Christian and the Hedgehog boys in their first album include So Need a Cute Girl, a parody of I Want It That Way by the Backstreet Boys.
A fire, the desire to not hear you say, I have a boyfriend.
Sonichu Zip, which is a parody of Sonic Drive.
Let's get together. Let's live. No matter how
AUTISM, which is a parody of Larger Than Life by the Backstreet Boys.
I know AUTISM, what does it mean? Silence and friends unseen.
BFFs, a parody of If Only Tears Could Bring You Back by Midnight Suns.
You hang out with your two friends you made and your boyfriend who acts as a black Sonichu.
La Cocina and La Casa de Casanova, which in English translates to The Kitchen in the House of Casanova, which is a parody of La Copa de la Vida by Ricky Martin.
Estamos en La Cocina, en La Casa de Casanova, estamos divertidos.
Yellow is a Mellow Color, which is a parody of the Macarena by Los Del Rio.
Mellow color, yes it is, it's a mellow color. Sonichu sits with lightning, hey, mellow color.
And Feel So Lonesome, which is a parody of Crazy by Britney Spears.
Oh man, I want a cute gal, but in getting one I have no ball.
The songs that Christian and the Hedgehog boys sing are usually about Sonichu, autism, and being lonely. But now that you know more about that, it'll come back later, let's move into the second sub-episode. The second sub-episode is called Christian Chandler in The Rise and Fall of My Heart. This still has the TV-like title, reaffirming that Chris mostly gets his ideas from Saturday morning cartoons. The comic starts with Chris sitting in the mall. It shows his previously shattered heart, sitting at 20% repaired. This isn't the first time that Chris uses video game type language to express himself, although it seems like Chris prefers these terms instead of real life terms. Chris says, "Well, it's been almost 1 year and 8 months now since I've started my love quest. I'll try to attract after eating my 8-piece chicken nugget. Maybe I'll get lucky today." Just then, someone approaches Chris. It's a girl. She says, "I heard that you were looking for a girl, right?" Chris then says yes and asks her name. She says, "My name is Hannah." Here's the funny thing. Again, like all sub-episodes, these are all based on things that happened to Chris in real life. This Hannah girl is a real person. Hannah asks Christian to go have coffee in 15 minutes. Christian then gets another full-page spread, and he says, "Yes! My love quest is finally over!" Moments later, Christian is sitting at a table in the food court. Christian says, "This is so fantastic. A girl has finally noticed me. and we're about to have a drink and talk. I'm so elated. Another voice is heard. It says, I'm so excited too, Chris. Chris, without skipping a beat, talks to Rosechu, who's been there the entire time. Chris says, yes, Rosechu, I am also glad that all of my hedgehogs are cheering me on too. Why don't you go spread the word through Quickville? This sub-episode, despite being about real life, takes place in the fictional world of Quickville. Rosechu alerts Bubbles, who we haven't met yet, and we'll see in later issues. Hannah then shows up. Chris starts the conversation by asking her about her hobbies. The next exchange is a little bit odd since the spacing is really weird, so I'll try to read it in the correct order. Well, I enjoy playing my guitar and reading Chuck Palahniuk. Chuck Palahniuk is also the director of the movie Fight Club, rated R. Aside from Chuck Palahniuk being spelled wrong, David Fincher actually directed the movie Fight Club, not Chuck Palahniuk. I bet that you play great numbers. I've only played a couple years, but I might play for you sometime if you like. Also, please tell me about your necklace. Yes, my Sonichu medallion. This is the face of my electric hedgehog Pokemon Sonichu. Let me show you my Sonichu scrapbook. That would be great. Chris then wastes no time to bombard Hannah with Sonichu, which in all honesty is the best way to talk to girls. Before he leaves to ecstatically call his family, he gives her a double-take flirt, whatever the hell that is, and heads back to his spot in front of the pack sun, already with the second date on his mind. In the comic, Rosechu finds out that Hannah was just messing with Chris, and the date wasn't intended to be taken seriously. Rosechu then runs off to tell Chris, who is thinking of pickup lines like, do angels have names? Which is just a botched version of, do angels like you have names? In real life, Chris actually made some friends at the mall, and the friends had found out and didn't want to keep Chris from knowing the truth that Hannah was just never interested in him. But back in the comic, Rosechu tells Chris, who at first doesn't believe her. He then storms off to ask Hannah, who confirms it. I'm afraid that it is true. My friends wanted me to play around with you. They thought it would be funny. Chris tries to visually show his heartbreak like a TV show, and he says, please pardon me for a moment. No! Which actually happened in real life, and it also got him banned from the Fashion Square Mall in Virginia. Later that night, Chris sends her an email. Fandana, I just wanted to say that I appreciated you being the first to approach and say anything to me. I get very nervous, so I was hoping for that to happen. I also appreciated you taking the time to chat with me at the shop, and I was very elated, excited, and butterfly heartful from the positive events. But it was not very nice of you to have led me on like just to pull a prank on me. I was terribly hurt. Before you stepped into my world, my heart was previously shattered due to previous events, and it was 20% repaired. After you came into my world, my heart had made a miraculous and speedy recovery to 100%. Then, after I learned from you that it was a lie, my heart shattered back down to 15. There is a lesson to be learned through this. Never make a joke or prank at the expense of another person's feelings and emotions. But still, after cooling off, I also want to say that I thought you, Hannah, looked very pretty, and I enjoyed your charming wit and personality, and I thought of you as a nice and lovely girl. If you should ever change your mind on how you feel about me, you may look me up. But please, tell me 2 things in your reply. You don't smoke, do you? That stuff really turns me off. Are you boyfriend free? Sincerely, Christian W. Chandler. P.S. You may take this as a clue, but keep in mind that I did graduate from high school with an honor roll, and I did make good grades at PVCC. You may want to look up redacted in a search. Although, his attempts to sell himself as an honor roll student fail, as Hannah's never mentioned again, in real life or the comic. We then get one more page. A message from Christian that says, I hope that you have enjoyed the sample episode in this free comic of the Sonichu comic book. I take great pride behind my electric hedgehog Pokemon, Sonichu, and all the other characters in the city of Quickville. I want Sonichu to be more than just on paper. I want him in his own video game, cartoon show, and other fine merchandise. Although, I have already made some fun Sonichu items of my own, but I feel the public should be able to share in the Zappin' fun. If you would like to see Sonichu as a real video game too, or catch him in a Pokemon title, please send your request to Nintendo of America, Inc. or Nintendo Power Magazine. Please raise the hype on Sonichu so that I will be able to legally talk to the people of Nintendo of America, Inc. and make a deal with them. Thank you for reading the free sample of the Sonichu comic book. And as Sonichu says, let's zap to the extreme! And that ends Sonichu issue 1. I'm going to call it for now, but this is just the beginning. As of now, there are 16 issues of Sonichu 1. And we're going to go through all of them.